Look, how do you communicate with America? Garland, you're a communicator. You do this show, you do radio shows, you're out there doing public speaking. I've been doing it for a while too. And one of the most difficult things is how do you get into the minds of your average American? Because to be honest, you and I, like-minded people tend to gravitate towards each other, and we both have our respective audiences. I think there's some crossover, but these are people who, by and large, agree with us. But we need to attract in our audience, or at least communicate with an audience that I'm not saying they have to disagree with us, but people who haven't made up their minds yet, to talk to them, how to convince them. And it's one of the most difficult problems out there. I've tried everything. I've made documentary movies. I do these podcasts over and over and over again. I write. But let me put it this way. I could sit there and write an intelligent article about Osama bin Laden's letter, and it would just go over the head of 9/10 of the people who read it, with all due respect to the people who are out there reading. But how many times does Hollywood make the movie about the happy man and his happy wife at home, and the bad guys come in and they do something stupid and a bullet flies and kills the wife and the kid, or kills the husband and kid in this day of gender equality? And now you have the surviving parent who's mad with anger, and you see it in their eyes. And then they go out and they train, and we're all entertained. We're going, all right, baby. She's with knives. She's shooting great. She's popping up. And then she just exacts revenge against everybody. And we're like, it's so justified. It's so justified. It's so beautiful.
The equalizer. Yeah. The equalizer,
God,
stuff like
yes,
that.
the equalizer, the oh man. And we're just like, boy, we buy it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Hollywood. Every day in Gaza, a family is hundreds of families are going through that trauma. Hundreds of families. And if you think that it's okay for an American to get enraged because some gang member killed his family and now he's going to exact revenge against everybody and it's beautiful, why ain't it beautiful for the Palestinians to do it? They've been subjugated for 75 years by the Israelis, an occupier, an evil occupier, now that we recognize what they are. And yet we call it terrorism when they do this, when they exact this revenge. And, we supply the bombs, we supply the airplanes, we supply the money, we supply the green light, we provide we are guilty of the same crimes. And at some point in time, they will come back on us. Now, they can't necessarily reside in America and pop up through the sewers and gun down everybody like they do in Hollywood. They do weird things like hijack airplanes and fly them into buildings, because that's the weapon they can get to do the most harm. And we call it terrorism. Wake up, people. It's called justice. It's called justice. We can call it American justice if it was done in Hollywood, and it's an American. Denzel Washington gets away with it all the time. He's made how many movies like that? Equalizer 1, 2, 3, but he's also done other movies. The Revenge.
Man on Fire. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Man on Fire. I love that
movie. They kidnap a little girl and he kills everybody.
Kills everybody because they kidnapped a little girl who ain't even an American. So ladies and gentlemen, please, if I can communicate this, go on a Netflix binge, watch all the revenge movies that have ever been made. Then leave that and say, all that anger that was in that movie towards the bad people exists in the Middle East today towards us, that we have become the target, and they are right in targeting us. They are just in targeting us. And they will exact their revenge on us if we're not careful. It may be too late, because we have done so much harm. This is why diplomats from around the Middle East are pouring in letters to Blinken and Biden saying, guys, we've lost the streets. We've lost it. There was a time, even somebody like me who's relatively well known in the Middle East, I always felt that I could travel to the Middle East, to Iran. I still wouldn't go back to Iraq because I don't know. But I felt like I could go to Beirut. I felt like I could go to Cairo, and travel amongst the Muslim population and not necessarily fear, because the Islamic world is generally welcoming of guests, and if you come in as a guest, they will treat you very, very politely and very well. But I'm at the point now where civic norms no longer apply, that the desire for revenge, and that people would no longer view me as Scott Ritter, but view me as an American, because I am an American, and they would treat me as every American should be treated at this point in time, and it won't be pretty. um, I'm nervous for the first time to take an American passport and travel overseas, because we don't stand for too much that's good anymore. We stand for a whole bunch that's bad. In the past, that we could have a debate and discussion that there is some sort of yin yang, black, white, good, evil battle being waged in Washington, D.C. And yes, we do bad, but we're trying to do good. And trust us, we hope the good one's out. That's done. We don't even try to do good anymore. There's nothing we do in the world today that's good. Everything we do is evil. Everything we do is evil. You can't point to one thing where we are truly selfless. There is an agenda behind everything, and that agenda is about getting the world to submit to American hegemony, economic, military, political hegemony. Democracy has been perverted. The very notion of democracy has been perverted. When Ann Applebaum can write an article in Atlantic Magazine praising Zelensky and the Ukrainians as a free and democratic society, when he is banning elections and he rules under martial law, there is no democracy in Ukraine. Hell, there's
Well,
no.
I got to add this. You know me, I don't like either one of the parties. I'm an independent. But they got the leading opposition figure in the United States, a guy who leads in the polls right now. They charge this guy with everything but yanking a tag off of his mattress. They have charged Donald Trump with everything they can possibly charge him with. Again, I don't like either one of the parties. But when I look at Biden, I see that the FBI literally covered for him, hid for him, blocked investigations into him, and they charged Trump with everything. I don't have to like Trump to say that is unjust. And the people who want to vote for Trump should have a right to vote for any damn body they want to. And I see a government now that says, if you want to vote for this guy, the government is going to come forward and make sure that you can't vote for him. There was a guy named, I think Victor Medvedev was his name. He was the leading opposition figure. He was polling ahead of Zelensky, and Zelensky locked him up for treason. And I think they ran him out of the country. There's no difference than that here. That's what they're doing to Trump.
Again, I'm with you on Trump. I mean, look, I was never on the Trump bandwagon. The second he came down that escalator in 2015, I went, here comes trouble. And then he opened his mouth, and Garland, you know me well enough that I hate John McCain. I hate him viscerally. I despise the man, everything about him, except when Donald Trump mocked him for being a prisoner of war. I went, you can't do that, Donald. The man was a prisoner of war. And by all accounts, I know there's people out there who will say differently, but by all accounts, what I do know is he was offered a chance to leave Vietnam early because he was the son of the commander of the Pacific Fleet. And he said no, and he stayed there. And I want to ask anybody out there, would you have the courage to make that same decision? It's very easy for us to say yes today, but when you've been tortured, broken, beaten, and you're given the golden ticket out, would you have the courage to say, no, I'm staying here knowing I'll be subjected to more torture? I don't like John McCain, but I would never denigrate what happened to him in Vietnam. And Donald Trump was just damn wrong, dead wrong on that one. He took out he put his sights on a Mexican judge, a Mexican American judge, simply because of his his ethnic background. You can't do that if you want to be president. You can't do that if you want to be an American. It's just bad. So I didn't like this guy. I think I said this, I was a Bernie Sanders guy. I'm like, bring it on, Bernie. Bernie's the man. Bernie's going to break it up. Stands for peace. Well, we all know that now that Bernie was a liar. He didn't stand for anything. And he allowed himself to be mugged by Hillary Clinton and the DNC to steal a nomination that should have been his. He should have launched a revolution that day in Philadelphia and stormed the stage and said, we're taking over America. Welcome to the new world. We don't accept the elites manipulating. The people have spoken. Hillary will never be crowned queen, and I own the DNC now. Let's rock. He could have done that. I bet you he'd have been president of the United States. Maybe it's good that he didn't, because now we know his true nature. But my point is, when it was Hillary versus Trump, given those two, I picked Trump. Not because I thought he was a good guy. I just told you I disagree with him.
Hillary is that bad.
But Hillary was
look at
that
Biden.
bad.
Look at Biden. That's what we'd have. If you look at Biden right now, that's what we'd have got with him.
But if we come down to this point where it's Trump versus Biden, it's not even a question. It's not even a question. It's Trump. But now, and not because, again, I'm out here saying,
I'm
oh,
right.
geez,
I
what's
agree
the good
with
things
you.
I can say about Trump? No, it's just that I know what's going to happen if we continue Biden. I know how bad it's going to be with Biden. With Trump, I'm still hoping that he might pull a couple North Korea denuclearization initiatives out of his hat that nobody else thinks about. And that was a good moment for him when he tried to
Well, how about this,
bring an
Scott?
end to it.
Maybe we'll have a chance at least to survive a Trump presidency. Biden, I ain't so sure we survived that. That's how bad it is. But
But they're
it's
not
like
going to give us that chance, though. That's the problem.
exactly,
They're in the process of
exactly.
stealing the choice from the American people with politicized. I'm not saying that Trump is innocent of everything he's been charged of. I damn sure not saying that because I'm not here to prejudge the outcome of a judicial process. What I am saying is that the charges put up against him are political in nature. That politicians, Joe Biden could be charged on virtually everything Donald Trump has been charged with. We know that Barack Obama could be charged with this. Richard Nixon could have been charged with this and more. There's not an American politician out there who's clean. This system stinks. But to suddenly be very selective, businessman, you're telling me that you're going to charge Donald Trump for pumping up the value of his real estate holdings? Do an investigation on every major real estate holder in America, and they're guilty of the same things. And
Me
it's a
included.
relationship they have with the banks, including Joe Biden.
Yeah, me
So
included. If people who
this is
sold or
this is
bought a house,
stupid.
most likely you're going to try to get every dime you can. And let me add this. In that case, he overvalued the property, they said. But all the loans were paid off. So this is a victimless crime. Supposedly he overvalued it. Whoa, boy, somebody overvalued property in New York City. Who's ever seen that before? But all the loans were paid off.
Are you ready for
So
this, Garland? I live in Bethlehem, New York. All right. I'll be just dead honest. I bought this house in 2000 for $179,000. And that was a lot of money for me.
oh yeah.
The town of Bethlehem decided they need to pump up their schools and it's growing and it's outgrown their budget. So the town of Bethlehem came in and arbitrarily said, my house is now worth $325,000 and I'm paying property taxes on $325,000. And yet, if I try and sell my house today, I ain't going to get more than $275 for it. All right. So we just sat there, and this happens all over America, where the government overvalues property for the purpose of generating tax income. And now they're going to charge Donald Trump because he overvalued property is what it's worth. And Trump had every right to say, my name alone increases the value. Now, the market might say we disagree, but the market doesn't get to set the price. They can cause
And the
price
bank gets to
to
give
come
him a
down,
loan. The bank
but
could
the
look at
banks
it and
still have
say,
to give a
nah,
loan.
it's not. Yeah, the bank could say, nah, we're only
They
going
can
to
do that.
loan you
Aren't you
this
supposed
much.
to do due diligence? Garland, you want to sell me your 1965 Corvette. I'm not saying you have one, but you want to sell it to me. And you're telling me, hey, man, Scott, it's been in a nitrogen infused garage for 50 years and there ain't a spot of rust on it. Walk around and I look around and I look at the paint job and I go, that paint ain't what was on in 1965. That looks like 1999 kind of paint. And Garland, I'm not sure. No, Scott, trust me, mint condition. And this is the price. If I pay the price, shame on me. I should do
Exactly.
my due diligence. I should put that machine up on a thing, look under, scratch, all that kind of stuff, and come back, go, Garland, this ain't new. Here's the price. Banks don't have to give you a loan. I've gone into banks and have them tell me, no, we ain't giving you a loan. We ain't going to do it. You're just
Right.
not. And they run through the numbers and all that kind of stuff. No bank had to give Donald Trump a loan, not a single one of them. And yet they looked at the paperwork. They did their due diligence, or you hope they did, and they gave him the loan. And they got all their money back, plus the interest. They made money. It was a good business deal. What the hell is wrong with the Attorney General from New York? We know what's wrong. She ran on a platform of deplatforming Donald Trump. And this should be rejected, not because you like Donald Trump, but because you believe in justice, you believe in America. Right now, he's the lead. He's the most popular candidate in America today. For better or for worse, he's outpolling Joe Biden. He's definitely outpolling every idiot that's running in the Republican Party. So if there was a fair and free election, and that's a big if, he would win. This is a man that The majority of the American people appear to want to be their president, and yet the Democrats and the justice system is doing their best to deplatform him. Guys, if this happens, it's over. This finishes for this country. We're done.
You know what the
all
interesting
over.
thing about it is? And they're charging him saying he tried to interfere with an election. And the charges are interfering with the, how ironic is that? What kind of a paradox do we have? They're charging him in a deliberate attempt to interfere with election, and they're saying they're charging him for you get caught in a paradox and smoke comes out of yours. It's unbelievable. But that's where we are, Scott. The interesting thing about it is when you look at what's happening in Gaza, when you look at the injustice and the violence there, when you look at the madness, what was it? They had a summit yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, the video's out there. They had a summit where President Biden and President Xi met in San Francisco yesterday. So President Biden comes out and somebody asked him, they're supposed to be, repairing whatever. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But somebody said to Biden, is Xi still a dictator? And they put the video on Blinken. And you could see Blinken like, no, please, God, no, we've done, no. And he's sitting there. And Biden says, of course he's a dictator. And Blinken, just the color drains out of his face. And his hands, if you look at him, his hands are like, oh, geez, what am I going to do? Nobody believes us, the leadership of our country. Nobody takes them seriously. People are furious at them. They think they're crazy people, which they are. And basically, the Biden administration has done more damage in 4 years than I can imagine that any government in this country could do in a century. It's unbelievable, Scott. I know we're getting into politics, but you'll get the last word here.
Well, I'll put it on China. I had a very interesting interview with a Chinese journalist the other day, and let me point this. She writes for an outlet that is considered to be state controlled, so we can say that. She speaks English better than I do. She has a better education, American education, than I do. She is knowledgeable about more American topics than I am, and she's a journalist in her early 30s. The reason why I bring this up is Xi Jinping is surrounded by a team of Chinese diplomats and Chinese academics who are experts on America. They've lived here, they've studied, they speak it, they know it. And if you think that Xi Jinping is going to go, oh, Joe Biden called, God, I can't do my Chinese impression. That'll get me alienated around the world and my wife will kill me. So Xi Jinping, I apologize because he is going to be ruling the world pretty soon. So I don't want to piss him off. But so I'm not going to do that. But if you think he goes, oh no, Biden called me an idiot or called me a dictator. Yeah. I'm gonna throw everything away that we tried to accomplish here, and I'm going to come back and be angry and throw a temper tantrum. No, I mean the Chinese foreign ministry will of course make the appropriate words about this, but Xi Jinping had an agenda. He came here and he put the agenda down, and now they're going to act on the agenda. These are strategic thinkers, but we're not. We have a president who can't even stay on script. And I'm not. Normally, you wouldn't find me being sympathetic to Tony Blinken, but I was sitting there feeling his pain. It's just like, oh God, Tony, everything, because you saw he did a. You know that every once in a while Biden's brain works because he's sitting there talking about Hamas and about potential negotiations about a hostage swap and all this stuff. And he started to go down there and he goes, and I'm going to stop now, Mr. Secretary. I know I'm not supposed to be talking about this. And you can see Blinken like, whew, dodge that bullet. But a minute later, he's a dictator. Good. All that.
Oh, man.
This is just bad juju. The two guys that I dislike very much, but I feel the most pain for, is Blinken and John Kirby. I'm not a big fan of Kirby. He's the White House spokesperson, but you had to watch him on the airplane as he's watching Biden do his last briefing before they put him into a controlled coma. And he's just sitting there. His eyes are just wide, and he's looking over. Finally turns to the control, and he goes, please end this now. Get this over with now. Because you don't know. This is the man who's supposed to be here. And it begs the question, and I'll leave this here. Who's running this country, Garland? Who's running?
It ain't Biden.
It ain't
Forget that.
Biden. So who's doing it? Who's making the decisions? Who's telling Blinken? Because Blinken ain't running this country. Kirby's not running this country. Who's running this country? And this is a fair question. Is we as Americans have a right to have this answer. I know it's a national security issue if you have a senile president or a president who, because clearly he's not 24/7 there. So at the moments when that, that famous commercial that Hillary Clinton put out, the 3 a.m. phone call.
Yes.
Oh, Green, it's 3 a.m. Who do you want to pick it up? Well, it ain't going to be Biden because he hasn't been injected with whether they inject him with. They haven't. No, and Garden, we can laugh about,
I
but
agree.
it's true.
I agree.
No, he is a drugged up human being. They get him amped up so he has momentary, mental acuity to make a statement and a speech. But there's periods of time as he's transitioning in and more dangerously out, because you look at him and you can just see it. I watch it all the time. He's talking, all of a sudden, and the drugs wear off and he disappears into the void. And that's when his handlers are like, got to get him out of here. What happens 5 minutes later if the phone call comes in saying, Russia's put their strategic nuclear forces on high alert, and Mr. President, we need a phone call right now. Who's going to make that phone call?
Not him.
No, and so have we communicated this to Vladimir Putin so that when the guy who answered the phone or the gal, picks up the phone and says, "Hi, I'm standing in for Joe Biden because, well, his brain ain't working right now," and Putin would say, well, constitutionally, am I allowed to speak with you? Are you really the authority in America? Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a moment in time when our government no longer functions constitutionally.
I'll say this.
Some people say ever, but right now we don't have a constitutionally elected executive branch. We have something that's.
I had somebody recently tell me that I think knows they're kind of in a panic in the White House over the Israel thing because they don't know what to do. They're looking at it. Oh my God, this is a mess. This is a disaster. Hundreds of thousands of people in the street. Our, 80% of the Democratic Party, 80% of the party wants a ceasefire. They talk to Netanyahu and the Israelis and they just say, shut up. We're not listening to you. They don't. And then they're getting pressure from their right wing saying, hey, you got to support Israel. So they're in a tough spot. And as you said, who's running it? They don't know what to do. They don't have somebody there. Sometimes, even if the person is not a great leader, sometimes from the military. I know if I was in law enforcement and it's quasi-military, I was a major and something happens. People would look at me and they would say, they'd come to my office, Major, we had one. One of our officers literally shot somebody. What do we do? And at that time, I was in a panic. Hey, one of our officers had shot and killed a guy. And I'm sitting here drinking coffee in the afternoon. And they come up, we've had a shooting. Oh, what was it? One of our officers shot and killed somebody. What do we do? I was kind of in a panic. I'm like, ugh. But they wanted to know, what do we do? I had to say, well, first of all, you have to even look like you know what the hell you're doing. First of all, call internal affairs, call this person, boom, contact state police, get a team out there, boom, boom, do this. You get on they are looking for you. And once you tell them what to do, everybody scurries off and starts doing it. Yeah. But you have to be able to make a decision and tell people to go forward. You can even adjust those decisions, but you got to be able to say, you do this. They got nobody there.
Right, but Garland,
I don't know. What do you think we should do?
Yeah. They came to you, Garland. They came to you because you were the guy to come to. You were the commander. Now imagine if I came to you, hey, Major Nixon, Lieutenant Ritter, we just had a shooting, and Major Nixon's going, and so Captain Smith jumps in,
right,
and who I've never met before, and goes, I'm speaking on behalf of Major Nixon. What I need you to do is X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go, sorry, Smitty, but I don't know you. You ain't in my chain of command. When I look at the people that I take orders from, your name ain't on it. I'm looking for where the mayor appointed you or the director appointed you, where you came from, and you ain't it. No one's going to obey those orders because they don't come from a place of authority. And this is the danger right now. Because let's say you're you're in the Pentagon, and we deal with warlike situations all the time. The Pentagon has to obey lawful orders. And a lawful order can only come from a constitutionally competent source, meaning that the Constitution says this is where you go for your orders, and there is a chain of command. And if the orders are being issued by somebody or entity outside of that chain of command, unelected power brokers who have stepped in to intervene without anybody's permission, who gave them permission? The chief of staff of the Biden White House, because you know that's what's happening. The chief of staff is going, the dude's incompetent. Bring in some people. Let's get this thing going. That's against the law. We're in trouble. We are in huge trouble right now at this moment in time. You know, you said, Israel told us to stick it in our ear. Man, Garland, I just fantasize sometimes about being a Secretary of State under a president who told me, go fix that. I would fly to Israel. I would invite a televised group. I'd sit down with Benjamin Netanyahu, and I'd start throwing out pieces of paper. First one would be the re-requisition of all F-35s. He goes, what's this? I said, well, those are our airplanes. We sold them to you under a contractual clause. You'll read about it, paragraph 3, that says you can't use them to violate international law. You are violating it. I want them all back. Oh, no, throw back. What's that? All the bombs we gave you. What's that? Everything we gave you. We want it back now. We want to well, you're not going to. What's that? That's a military order that will be executed in 1.5 hours as I leave. And if I don't leave, if you hold me hostage, it's executed immediately. We're going to level your country. We're going to take everything out. We're going to take out those airplanes, those bombs, you, me, the world. We don't care anymore because you don't have a right to exist anymore because you suck. I'd love to be the Secretary of State to be able to tell that to the Prime Minister of Israel on live TV and put them in their place. Who the hell does Israel think they are to dictate terms of global consequence, dictate those outcomes to us, the Americans, who underwrite everything that happens in Israel? Now, Israel is a sovereign state, but sovereignty comes, with that comes responsibility to act within the limits that you are afforded by the scope and scale of your country. Israel is a small country. It has no right to dictate outcomes to America, none whatsoever. And we don't have an obligation to continue to fund this entity, to arm this entity. In fact, we have an obligation to do the exact opposite when this entity behaves in a manner that is in contravention of the very things we claim to support as a nation. The rule of law set forth under our Constitution and under international law. And I remind all you Constitution-loving Americans out there, we signed the United Nations Charter. We made the United Nations Charter. It was ratified by the Senate constitutionally. It becomes the law of the land. Read the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, people. Refamiliarize yourself with that concept. So you can't say, Scott, we're not going to defend international law. Defend the Constitution. Defend what we stand for as a people. Stand for something, people. Please stand for something. And if you're American, you better be standing for the Constitution and the values that are enshrined in that. And we have walked so far away from that, Garland. It's pathetic where we are as a nation. I apologize for losing my temper.
No, I'm with you, man. I mean, we usually don't get into politics, but it's very obvious right now that the wheels are coming off the cart at 1600. No, they don't have you have a cart anymore. They got no wheels. They got no cart. You got people around who are incompetent, and they are just they're. I don't know where this goes from here, but let's keep our arms crossed, our fingers crossed. That so far, I'll say this: at least the leaders of the Muslim world are showing more constraint, are showing more wisdom than these lunatics that we got running this thing. Because if they are literally containing their population's rage. How long they can do it, I don't know. But luckily for us, they're wiser than the clowns that we got here. Scott Ritter, don't forget everybody. Go to scottritterextra.com, scottritterextra.com for all of Scott's good works. And you can go, when you go there, make sure that you help Scott materially, financially, because look, we do all of this stuff and people enjoy the videos and the writings of Scott and all the things we do. But, the bottom line is this: people got to feed their families and keep the lights on. So go to scottritterextra.com, make sure you donate, help Scott Ritter keep things going and keep this good work going. You see everything scrolling across the bottom there: Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, Cash App, you name it. If you can afford to donate to this channel, please make sure you share this on all of your social media platforms. Thank you very much. We're out.